Hello everyone. Matthew Arnold. Matthew Arnold is both a poet and critic. His criticism is the criticism of a poet who had personal experience of what he was writing about. He made his debut as a critic in the preface to the poems of 1853. So and so we know Arnold as a poet in Age of Tennyson. I think you might have learned about Arnold. Hope you remember, and also you might have learned about Arnold in History of English Literature. So Arnold is one of the famous personalities as far as English literature is concerned, and he is also one of the famous personality or famous as a critic too. But he is called a poet critic because most of his criticism he wrote was about his personal experience of writing poetry. So he made his debut. Debut means the first performance as a critic in the preface to the poems. So first criticism he wrote was preface to the poems of 1853. So when he was appointed as professor of poetry at Oxford, he had the opportunity to develop his critical powers. His important lectures are collected in two volumes. They are on translating Homer and the study of Celtic literature. So these two are some of the collected volumes of his poetry. So he also wrote for the literary journals, which served as the profitable and convenient intermediate stage between the lecture and the books. So this is something which you can find that most of his writings were collected in literary journals, which was actually intermediation between his lectures and the books. So those who were not able to read, they used to listen to his lectures. Then he published the essay in criticism in two series. His criticism falls under two divisions. They are one on the art of poetry and another on the art of criticism. So remember this. So as I told you, you have to take down some important points while preparing an essay for writing your exam. You can underline certain things like this. So he was a poet critic that you can made use of here. You can make use of that kind of a thing. He was poet as well as a critic, and he made his debut by this poem, the collection of poem you have to remember. And also next you can his important lectures are collected in two, what are the two volumes that you can have to remember. So 3 points already have got it right. Then you can see you can his works were published in essays and criticism, which fall under two divisions. One is art of poetry and art of criticism. So this point is very important as far as Arnold is concerned. So a group of poets in the Victorian age are called the spasmodic. These poets, the group of poets of the Victorian age, they were called spasmodic poet. This they held poetry to the expression of the state of one's mind. This led to the extravagance of thought and emotion. In order to attack this group, Arnold wrote preface to the poems of 1853. So there were a group of poets called spasmodic poets, and according to them, the poetry is a one's expression of the state of one's mind. Okay, so they thought that if I can tell whatever I can give to them, it is. You can just remember that whatever is in my mind, I can just write it and give it in a paper. So that is a kind of extravagance. So people does not like it. So in order to attack that group, Arnold began as a critic. So that is why he wrote his preface to the poems of 1853. Next, you can see spasmodic were much preoccupied with thought and neglected action. So these spasmodic poets were concerned with the thought, and they do not want any action. Then to Arnold, the joy of poetry gives is dependent on its subject. So what kind of subject you choose, that will give the heart or soul to the poetry. So according to Arnold, the business of poets is to give to them the highest pleasure which they are capable of feeling. So a poet can just make the people and they can give the highest pleasure, so it can appeal to everyone. So that is the idea of Arnold. Okay, and he does not say poetry as something which is the expression of one's mind. He says that it should appeal to other people also. That is called what is a good poetry is. So Arnold pays respect for ancient writers like Shakespeare, who chose excellent subjects. Remember, you are also studying Shakespeare. So Shakespeare is a universal writer. We know that his characters are universal in nature, and even there is no character left in this world which Shakespeare has not touched upon. If you read Shakespeare's dramas, you can find that he has written about all the characters, all the kinds of feelings, all the kinds of emotions you can find. For example, we can take the four tragedies. You can find each of the tragedy has a kind of an theme. For Othello, it is high ambition. For King Lear, it is misjudgment. And for Othello, it is jealousy. And for Hamlet, it is procrastination. Or you can see, so see how the characters, how he make the characters, and also when you take Julius Caesar, you can find the more ambition of the people, and misjudgment again. There you can find history plays, Antony and Cleopatra, etc. Everything, all kinds of Merchant of Venice, where you come to know about two important characters, who is greedy as well as who is very innocent, etc. Like all the characters, he has made his subjects universal in nature. That you have to remember. So Shakespeare is called a universal writer. So Arnold pays respect for his ancient writers like Shakespeare. They gave much more importance to action than expression of it. They are the masters of grand style. So he called those persons as the masters of grand style. So Arnold, the superiority of the grand style of the Greeks over the style of English writers. So he says that Arnold, according to Arnold, English style of writing, he's comparing the grand style of Greek as well as English. In on translating Homer, he offers it as a cure for evil as the English life and poetry. Their life is derived of nobility, so their literature also falls down in grand style. So he offers kind of deprived of nobility. That there are no noble thoughts in Greek literature. That is what he writes in on translating grammar. Homer, sorry. According to Arnold, Homer is a master of grand style. Great words come only from great minds. Remember that always great. Homer is a kind of a master, and great words come only from great minds. The subject chosen for treatment should admit such grand style. The grand style occurs only when a gifted poet treats a serious thought. So a poetry or whatever work we take up, it should have some kind of a uh, grand nature in it. So then only it can be taken as a or the subject should be very serious, or a very serious in the sense very it should they take to not only thought, but also it should also make you emotive in the sense make you act. So according to Arnold, poetry is much connected to life. He cannot approve of the theory of art for art's sake. So art for art's sake, just for the sake of art, that cannot be the idea of Arnold. Arnold says that poetry has something connected with the life. So we can just imagine that, right? When you are so sad, you listen to a very favorite song of yours, you will somewhat get a kind of a consolation. So that's what he's trying to say. When you are very happy, when you listen to music, when you are sad, you listen to music. So poetry should be such a kind of thing. It should not just for the sake of a song. If you are watching a movie, there are quite a number of songs in it, but still you may like only one or two songs which appeal to you, and there are many songs which are left even left without carry. So that is how the things go. Whether I do not know whether all of you have watched the movie Netrikan, which was starred by um, Nayantara, the recent movie in Amazon Prime. It was released, so you might have watched it. And the song, I really, in my personal experience, it is a very, what we can say, a movie. It's an eye opener movie. And also I feel that a song which comes in that, it's very, which gives confidence to many of us. இதுவும் கடந்து போகும் அப்படிங்கிற அந்த சாங் கேட்டிருப்பீங்க. ஸோ sometimes when you feel hard, when you feel sad about it, I think recent movie அப்படிங்கறனால அதை பத்தி சொல்றேன். There are quite a lot of songs and movies, which or books or whatever it is that, whenever I feel sad, or I am not, I think, I have some kind of mind struggle, I used to read Swami and Friends. That is a kind of a medicine for me. Okay, I read a lot, so I have read that book more than 100 times. I would say that, because that is a kind of a consolation for me. For also, so that is, so we cannot say there it is art for art's sake. When you feel, when you have that a kind of a feeling, you definitely you have that. So that song, it is really a wonderful song which give you a lot of self confidence. The lines, the wordings are very nice, of course. And of course, when it is enacted and sung by our favorite musicians or singers, and as actors, we really get used to, kind of carried away by those things. So that is how it goes. So the so we cannot say that art is for only art's sake. It should affect your mind. So that is what Arnold is trying to give you here. He defines poetry as criticism of life under the conditions fixed for such a criticism. Poetry teaches us how to live fully and richly. It has the power of forming and delighting us. Arnold admits that creative faculty is the superior to critical faculty. So, critical thinking is inferior in the sense of Arnold, and he says that creative understanding is very much important. It has the power of forming and delighting the people. So, a writer should use the best ideas in the best style. So these are some of his ideas. One important idea which you should remember about Matthew Arnold, when you think of Matthew Arnold, immediately as a critic, a method should come to your mind. That method is called touchstone method. Touchstone, I think, what is touchstone? உரைகல் பார்த்துருப்பீங்க. கோல்டு எல்லாம் வாங்க போற இடத்துல நம்ம ஒரு பழைய தங்கத்தை கொடுத்தோம்னா ஒரு ஸ்டோன் வச்சு என்ன பண்ணுவாங்க, அதுல வந்து அதை உரசி பார்ப்பாங்க. உரைக்கல் சொல்லுவோம் இல்லையா? அது வந்து டச் ஸ்டோன். அதாவது அந்த ஒரு ஏதாவது ஒரு பர்டிகுலர் இடத்த வச்சு அவங்க உரசினா கூட they can find it out whether it is gold or it is not gold. So likewise, he says that we have to take some important works from literature, and that can be used as example. Here he, by touchstone method, he means that it is a example. So as a critic suggests the Arnold as a critic suggests the touchstone methods to judge literature. He lays down no hard and fast rule for that. This method was the original invention of Longinus and suggested in England by Addison. Addison explains how a literary taste can be cultivated. Okay, Longinus, it was originally invented by Longinus, but it was introduced to England by Addison. Hope you remember these names. Addison explains that literary taste has to be cultivated. If no person should be led without the taste of literature. So, according to Arnold, this test determines the worth of literature. In fact, there can be no more useful help for discovering what poetry belongs to the excellent class. He suggests critics to keep in one's mind likes the expression of great masters and apply them as touchstone to their poetry. So he does not say that you have to imitate everything. You have to you have to copy the ideas of others. No, it is not the method he is trying to say. He's saying you can make use of this kind of method so that it will be useful for you. When one keeps them well in our minds as touchstone, we can detect the presence and absence of high poetic quality. So, if you're going to write a poem, you can take Milton as an example, and Milton or Spencer as an example. Epic poetry. When you take up epic poetry, so both of them have used lot of references, lot of things. So that kind of ideas can be transferred to your imagination also. So each of us, as I told you, each one of us unique. Each one of us have different perspective towards life. what the way I think is not the way you think. So the same, it goes vice versa also. So you can understand that. So that's what he suggests that critics should take the styles of touchstone or the styles of the great masters, and it should be used for writing their poetry. So when one keeps them well in our minds as touchstone, we can detect the presence and absence of high poetic quality. Then he cites few example passages from Homer, Dante, Shakespeare, and Milton. So here he himself has chosen all these writers as examples. He points out how they impressed their poetic quality. They all belong to the class of excellent. So you cannot say anything wrong about these poets. That is the idea of Arnold. So it is better to have resource to concrete examples to take specimens of high poetry and to say Arnold is unable to suggest any concrete criterion by which a high quality of poetry may be decided. He considers tact or taste as a sure guide. Okay, yeah, as I told you, do not imitate, do not copy, just take it as an example, and you can model your writing in that way. That is what Arnold is giving a suggestion. So, and also he cannot give a concrete criterion for this, but still he says that you can use it as a tact or taste as your guide. So he feels that they can be found in the matter and substance of poetry. So in order of excellence, truth and seriousness are found. The critic gives criticism of his own, born of absolute sincerity. So according to Arnold, a critic gives criticism of his own, and it is absolutely his own sincerity he is presenting to the world. So that is the idea of Arnold. So with this, we come to the end of this essay. This is a very small essay. You can take, I think, you can study as such. It's very easy to study also.